Hey you. Yeah, you. So you like farming dailies, eh? To farm motifs to sell, yeah? You like to do a whole bunch of them on all your toons to make gold from motifs? Hey, what you doing over there? Are you spending some time looking through listings in the Guild Trader menu to look for items to flip for gold? Hey, I've seen you at this Harrowstorm for the past 2 hours. Are you looking to farm the Night Hollow motif that sometimes drops from these? In all seriousness though, there are better ways to be more efficient with your time spent trying to get items and or make gold on ESO. Allow me to show you how. I think most of us can agree that a really fun aspect of ESO revolves around how we can earn things for ourselves. Whether those things are provisioning ingredients needed to craft our best in slot foods so that we can go wipe in a trial for 2 hours, or perhaps a new motif so that we can flex our hashtag fashion scrolls on all the peasants, or even gold so that we can buy whatever our hearts desire. I know there are some players that absolutely love the grind for items and gold and could happily spend hours picking flowers in Betnik or hours emoting in front of a Harrowstorm ritual site waiting for it to respawn. But I also know that there are a lot of players that are put off by the grind. I'm here to propose that the grind doesn't have to be as bad as it seems, and that it is possible to be more efficient with your time spent playing ESO, especially when it comes to making gold. Specifically, I'd like to discuss the following 3 notions: cooldowns on motifs, productive flipping, and farming efficiency. I'll leave timestamps in the description if you'd like to skip to any particular part of the video. If you've played ESO for a while, you're probably familiar with the notion of item drops being on cooldowns. For example, let's say you've just defeated and looted a piece of gear from a delve boss. If it were to then immediately respawn because another player just loaded into the delve, and if you were to instantly kill it again, you would not get another piece of gear from it, not for another 5 minutes or so. Likewise, if you loot a furnishing plan from a container, you won't be able to have the chance to find another furnishing plan of the same rarity for a certain amount of time. What many players do not know is that some motifs, like many other items on ESO, also have cooldowns. When you receive a reward coffer from completing a daily quest like a world boss or delve daily, that coffer doesn't technically have anything in it. It only populates itself with items once you decide to open it. While it's never been confirmed by ZOS devs, the ESO community has come to realize that the motifs that come from daily reward coffers that you receive from DLC zones that were released after Elsewhere have cooldowns, specifically a 20-hour cooldown. This means that once you receive a motif from a daily coffer for any zone that came after Elsewhere, you cannot receive another motif of the same style from a coffer for around 20 hours. When you open up a coffer while you're on a cooldown for that motif style, you will not even have the chance to receive another one. With this information in mind, you can be more efficient with your motif farming. Let's use the recent Wayward Guardian motif as an example. You can do 7 Wayward Guardian dailies each day on each toon that has them unlocked. For the sake of the example, let's just say that you do them all regularly on one toon because bish ain't no one got time for that daily grind on multiple toons. Instead of opening all 7 of the reward coffers that you get from completing the dailies each day, it would be wiser to instead open as many coffers as it takes to get a motif. And then once you get one, stop and hang on to those remaining coffers for tomorrow. Then you can do your dailies again the next day and accumulate more coffers and repeat the same procedure when it comes to opening them. This method will basically almost guarantee you a Wayward Guardian motif each day. And if you have an abundance of coffers, you can opt out of doing your Wayward dailies and still get Wayward motifs just from opening up the ones that have been chilling in your inventory this whole time. This can take a toll on your inventory space, of course, but if you're truly looking to farm motifs that have cooldowns, this is your best bet at doing so. I've been using this exact strategy, and I've received 1 Wayward Guardian motif every day for the past several weeks. Every time I try to explain this cooldown thing to people in zone chat that ask about it, there are always skeptics. People that say it's not true and that they've received 2 motifs in the same day. Now when these people say these things, my first thoughts are that I don't know if they're trolling or just unaware. When they say they've received 2 motifs, do they mean 2 motifs of different styles? Because yeah, different motif styles would be on different cooldowns, so that is of course possible. Or maybe they opened their reward coffers 20 hours apart on the same day. So while yes, technically they received 2 motifs of the same style in the same day, that 20-hour cooldown still exists. Or are they talking about getting 2 pre-Dragonhold motifs in the same day? Because yeah, those do not have 20-hour cooldowns. Or maybe they're being completely honest, and they opened 2 coffers back to back for a post-Elsewhere DLC daily and got 2 of the same motif style. Even if this is the case, it is overwhelmingly apparent that it isn't a very normal occurrence, judging by the sheer volume of players that have shared very different experiences. A quick Google search into the matter will bring up pages of forum posts where players share their experiences farming new motifs. I've read plenty of testimonies about how players logged onto 18 different toons and did all of the dailies for a new zone and only received 1 motif. You think that's bad RNG? How about if I told you that there were hundreds of people that had similar experiences? Even if that one person that said they got 2 motifs in one day is being completely truthful and honest, that RNG doesn't look too hot, Chief. I'd rather just hang on to my coffers for another day. Still have your tinfoil hat on? Fair enough. I can see how governing the way you play based on information that came from a bunch of goons on the forums as opposed to the devs can seem unsavory. Honestly, I wish that the devs would come forward and disclose what the deal is when it comes to item cooldowns of all sorts on ESO. Some more transparency would be nice. But take it from me, a basement YouTuber that's done her fair share of dailies. From my time spent doing Dragonhold dailies and every other DLC zone that came after it, I can say that my experiences line up with those of the intellectuals on the forums for once. Whether there really is a cooldown or not, I guess we won't ever know unless the devs confirm it. But what I can confirm is that by stacking daily reward coffers from zones that came after Elsewhere, and just opening them until I get a motif from that zone has been a much more profitable and efficient way to collect motifs than opening all of them at once. It's important to note that some daily reward coffers have the chance to yield pretty valuable gear and style materials, so if you want to go ahead and open all your coffers anyways, even after you've received a motif, that's perfectly reasonable as well, especially if you plan on doing those same dailies the next day anyways. But if you're only interested in farming the motif, like if the other gear and style mats from the daily aren't all that impressive, I'm looking at you, Southern Elsewhere, then stacking coffers is the way to go. I've made a couple videos about flipping on the channel now. If you have the money to spare and a massive brain like me, you can make some fat stacks on ESO just from buying items from guild stores that you know you'll be able to sell for more on your guild store. If you want to flip, I would actually not recommend just clicking Browse All at a guild store and scrolling through all of that crap. It can sometimes honestly be a bit of a waste of time, and you'd be better off picking Buglosses. Buglosses? Bugli? You know what, forget it. You'd be better off picking Columbine at your favorite node farming location if your intention is to earn gold. The most efficient way to flip items is to actually know what it is that you're looking for when you approach a guild trader. I'm not going to tell you what exactly I look for when I flip, because that changes all the time. Things like new patches or shifts in the meta or changes to consumables or PvP zones and whether or not the general public is aware of it can all have an effect on the flipping potential of an item. So the best that I can do is just provide you guys information on this channel and on my website to help you figure out what items are best to flip yourselves. When you approach a guild trader, thanks to that handy search history tab on the left here, you can quickly look up all of the listings for the items that you're looking to flip when browsing guild stores. If you're playing on a PC server, then you can also of course use TTC to help direct you to the best deals for the items that you're currently flipping. You can quickly clear entire zones this way, and by stocking up on specific items rather than just picking up random ones to flip, you can control a little more of the supply of that item. If I buy 10,000 key fragments, for example, then anyone who wants to buy a lot of key fragments will likely have to buy them from me. Whereas if I were to just buy a bunch of random motifs instead to flip, a buyer would have more options to choose from when buying a motif. They wouldn't necessarily buy it from me. They could go to any number of traders to buy an honor guard chest or a cold snap helmet, but only a few traders have stacks of key frags on deck, you feel? If you do prefer to browse through everything, I would at least select the feature that allows you to browse by the newest listings so that you can spot some fresh deals and grab them for yourself. This will allow you to be more efficient with your time and could be handy if you don't have an idea for what kind of items you should be flipping at any given time. This is honestly a great way to catch any unintended listings as well, like if some poor soul forgets a few zeros, or if they throw a motif up for the default gold listing price. F's in the chat for those gamers. Speaking of efficiency, it's important to keep track of how much time you spend browsing guild menus with the intention to flip, and how much money you're going to make from flipping. Think about how many materials you could harvest in that time spent flipping. Would you have made more gold from selling those materials that you farmed in X amount of time, or more gold from the profit that would come from selling the items that you found from browsing guild stores for the same amount of time? If you keep this in mind, it should inspire you to make more educated decisions when looking through guild stores to flip items. Is that bow worth 15k that's only listed for 10k really worth buying to flip? Don't forget the listing fees and taxes that are deducted from every item that you list. And how long is it going to take before this item even sells after you list it? The profit from flipping this would be so marginal, it wouldn't be worth your time. So when flipping, be sure to do what it takes to be most efficient with your time while doing so, because if you could have made more gold from farming nodes in that time spent flipping, you're doing something wrong. Speaking of doing something wrong, one of the biggest gold farming mistakes that I see on ESO revolves around the notion of farming items that drop by chance. Now don't get me wrong, there are some pretty great gold farming activities that have an element of chance to them, like daily reward coffers and how they have a chance to drop a motif or a good piece of gear, or farming chests and how they have a chance to drop a valuable piece of gear as well. But some valuable items are best farmed passively, I find. Let me explain what I mean by way of another example. As I'm working on this video, the Night Hollow style has recently been added to the game. Besides having a chance to drop from the Markarth daily reward coffers that you receive after completing the Harrowstorm daily in the Reach, pages from this style have a small chance to drop from Harrowstorms in the Reach, much like how Greymore motifs have a small chance to drop from the Harrowstorms in Western Skyrim. In light of this new Dark Souls looking ass motif being recently added to the game, a lot of players have been farming Harrowstorms in hopes that they may perhaps receive a motif drop themselves. The thing is, the motif is not a guaranteed drop. In fact, these motifs have a very low rate of dropping. I've been keeping track of my personal data with the Harrowstorm so that I could share my experiences with you guys. I've completed 68 Harrowstorms over the course of a few days and only received 2 motifs. 2
Baba Booey
motifs. Those 68 Harrowstorms took me a total of about 6.5 hours to complete, and I received about 250k worth of gold from selling those 2 motifs. I could have made much more than 250k gold had I spent 6 hours flipping items. Do you see where I'm going with this? And yeah, I've heard of some players having stellar RNG and receiving 3 motifs in the span of 20 minutes. Well, provided they were telling the truth. They could have just been trying to flex in zone chat. But I've also heard of players that have farmed Harrowstorms for hours without getting a single motif to drop. The argument can be made that it would actually be more efficient to partake in an activity that produces a more reliable source of revenue, like farming or flipping, and then taking the gold that you get from that activity and using it to buy a Night Hollow motif, over farming the world event that has a chance to drop them. At least with the former scenario, you are guaranteed items of value, and your time spent grinding will not be wasted. So am I saying that you guys should all stop farming Harrowstorms? No way, you should play the way that you'd like. And if you genuinely enjoy farming them, by all means, go kick some vampire booty. In fact, farming world events can be done while half AFK, which is super handy. It's what I did when I farmed them. I parked my toon right by a Harrowstorm, tabbed out to work on editing my next video, and then tabbed back to ESO every time the ritual started. But what I'm saying is that if you're farming for the sheer purpose of collecting a specific item to use for yourself or sell for gold, be mindful of the fact that it may be a better idea to farm gold some other way. Remember, you can always use that gold to then buy what it is that you would otherwise be farming for. Now, of course, this reasoning is very situational, but I find that it applies to many different aspects of the game. It definitely applies to the world event in Somerset, the Abyssal Geysers. I know that some people deliberately farm those for powdered mother of pearl, but when you consider how rare of a drop this item is, it's obvious that it would be a better idea to just run around gathering nodes. You'd get way more pearls from taking the money spent from farming nodes for X amount of time than you would if you farmed geysers for the same amount of time. The last example I'll give concerns the Colovian Wartort recipe. It has a chance to spawn at a resource node in Cyrodiil, but that drop rate is very rare. So rare, in fact, that the recipe is worth close to 2 million gold on my platform. This price tag has enticed a lot of people to venture into Cyrodiil and spend hours running all over the place on their mounts, looking to see if they can spot it. I've heard many stories of people spending several hours looking without any luck. Had those people spent that time engaging with a more reliable source of gold making instead, they would have at least made some gold. More gold than if they were to find the recipe? Perhaps not, but at least that gold is guaranteed. Again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't farm for these items, but I'd just like to point out that doing so may not always be the most efficient use of time if you're looking to grind items for gold or for personal use. Instead, I find that the best way to engage with these situations is to do so passively. If you're on your way to an antiquity dig site and you see a harrow storm up in the near distance, why not head on over there and test your luck at getting a Night Hollow motif? If you're questing in Somerset and a geyser spawns close to you, you may as well solo it, see if you get anything juicy. Next time you're out in Cyrodiil, keep an eye out for a glowing green book. Or if you have to AFK to do something like clean the house or do some work, you could park yourself in front of something and come back to engage with it every time it spawns. I personally do all of these things, and it makes the grind for items and gold not seem so bad. If you wish to actively farm for gold, there are much more efficient and reliable ways to do so than to spend your time waiting around for RNGs to bless you. Those 3 gold making mistakes are the most prevalent ones that I see when I play ESO. And again, they are definitely not considered mistakes if the players partaking in them are genuinely enjoying their time doing so and are okay with how their time is being spent. Whether that's doing dailies on a million toons, or spending 5 hours chasing harrow storms, or browsing through every single listing on every single guild trader and every single zone. Play how you want, man, but if you're partaking in these activities for the sole purpose of farming gold, or farming for a specific item, then I'd say it's worthwhile to consider all that I've mentioned. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and if you have any questions about being efficient with your time spent making gold, or anything related to making gold on ESO, feel free to leave a comment as well, and I'll do my best to help you. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Don't be